Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. We do this every single Sunday night at 9:15 live on our Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. Welcome to episode 277. With me, as always, my best friend in the whole wide world, diehard Sox fan. He's been a man about town, vacations, birthday parties. Good for him to join us, though. Pat Hester, hello, sir.
Nick, I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to tell everybody that's listening what right now. If you get an opportunity before the end of this baseball season, go away. Go away to a place where you can't get cell phone reception, where you have no contact with the outside world, where you don't get internet. And just enjoy a vacation away, not only with your family and close friends, maybe, but just to get away from this team for a little bit. When I come back and get off a ship and I get, internet connection again, and I see, guys forgetting how many outs there are and ending a game on doubling up because, we don't know how many outs are. Those are nice things to get away from. So I'm excited to learn about everything that happened this week because I've been so, disengaged with everything that it's been kind of nice. So the show is yours. I don't know what I'll have to say much during this episode.
Well, I do want to pick your brain on some of the stuff that you just had mentioned, the whole therapy stuff, the angle that we go at. It's therapeutic to talk White Sox, I think, get some of these emotions out. We're joined with so many wonderful Sox fans every Sunday live and the great folks that listen and consume every week the audio. Drew, Trey, Luke, Scott, Sean, welcome. Happy Sunday. We're in it. We're all in it together here. I want to touch on kind of you're getting away, like physically, you literally got away. And I'm kind of at that point, even though I haven't really gone anywhere, but we will try to set the stage here for the team that we love. Why? I mean, that's sometimes where I come and I wrestle with every Sunday night. Why? And we know the answers, but we still say it out loud. Why are we doing this to ourselves here on this June 23rd? So our Chicago White Sox 21-58, which is kind of a critical point, as we're going to talk some history in a moment here after 79 games. 21-58, 37 games under 500. Hey, 30 games back in that ever-forgiving AL Central Division with a run differential of minus 164 and obviously the Sox are the worst team in the league by far. Their, run diff is on the pace for history. The team in general, this record, when you're talking about playing a 162 game schedule, the win percentage, this team could very well be the absolute worst team in 120 plus years. So for me, Pat, you seem like you didn't miss it at all. You got away. No. You literally got it away. You were on vacation, so obviously there was stuff distracting you, but it didn't sound like you had the temptation, which is understandable during the season, to even want to check in or have an idea of what's been going on.
No, I mean, I did when because I was off the grid starting Wednesday. That's when the ship took off. We were on a Disney cruise for a 3-day cruise. So it was nice to get away, but we flew into Fort Lauderdale on Tuesday. So Tuesday I was still checking things. And I think Tuesday was when Canon had the nice outing, if I remember correctly, if that's right, or was it Monday, whatever it was, I was checking in for that. So
Tuesday.
So I was able to see that. That was nice to see that kind of thing. And then when I got back in, obviously I checked and I'm like, okay, let's see what happened after Canon through the nice outing. And then I saw the L's started to pile up and Drew Thorp get his first win. So that's nice to see. And then the L's come again. So I didn't have any anxiety. I wasn't like sweating and, like biting my fingernails, wondering what the Sox could have done in this past week. The only thing that would have been, maybe if I missed a passing of an owner of a team, maybe that would have been something I would have liked to have been on breaking news, or maybe some type of big trade for a big haul type of thing. But I really wasn't concerned about that either, because I don't think that's happening until we get closer to the deadline, because I think that's when, you're getting the most for your guys. As the longer you wait, the better opportunity you have. So those are that really is the only thing that I would be concerned about missing out on, if you will. But the game, the day in and day out games, I don't miss. I mean, I've seen that it's the same story, and again, I haven't watched all the highlights from every game I missed, but it's the same damn story every day, Nick. I mean, it's like, listen, you could turn on, it's like turning on TNT or TBS. I can't remember who runs reruns of Seinfeld. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that episode. I've seen this episode before. I like it. I'll sit down and watch it. And so the White Sox are. Oh, I've seen this game before. I like the team. I'll sit down and watch it. I know how it ends. Boom. But I could go a month without watching Seinfeld and know everything that happened in every episode. Does that make sense?
I mean, I could play the game with you here since you really didn't watch the games, but you probably maybe you caught up a little bit. We could play that, I could give you multiple choice and you could guess exactly how some of these games ended this past week, but you definitely hit on Canon. Boy, talk about Twoface. He had quite the week. He absolutely had that great start on Tuesday, which we'll talk a little bit about, but most recently, this disaster on Sunday to finish up the Detroit series. I want to say hello to David and Brian and Clutch and Steve. Thank you so much for joining us. David mentioned that Jake Dedman, remember that great trade deadline acquisition that the Sox had a couple years ago?
Yeah, Jake Dedman. That was your favorite player when you were doing Locked On Sox. I think that you had more Jake Dedman episodes than you probably thought you'd have.
What a joke. I mean, that was the get. That was our big get at the trade deadline. I think it was in 2022. And boy, he turned out to be an absolute nothing burger. But he's with the Mets right now, as is Duke Ellis, that speedster, that guy that they let get away and DFA'd, the guy that could run very fast and do absolutely nothing else. The Sox thinking maybe he was going to fall back to them. The Mets gobbled him up. And I think there were a couple of Mets fans, asking Sox fans on social media, like, oh, well, what do you think about this guy? I mean, it's like fast. He's fast. You basically got a fast guy, and then good luck. Hopefully he pans. Maybe, knowing what happens when guys leave the White Sox, maybe he's going to turn into like a four-tool player, and they're going to ride that wave. But
that would be something. I want to go back to something you said. So Canon Twoface, is it the Tommy Lee Jones version of Twoface from Batman and Robin?
That was campy, like that was jokey. That was the Joel Schumacher directed Batman movies, which were tough to watch. So that one was kind of laughable, but this was scary because it was like you wanted to see him put together two outings. So this was the Aaron Eckhart, the most recent, the Christopher Nolan.
You never cease to amaze me. The fact that you pulled that actor out of your ass right here and now. First of all, shows what a great fan of Batman you are. Second of all, you're just knowledge of all things, that are important in life. So good for you, sir. I wouldn't have gotten that in a million years.
I keep this pretty close to the vest. I'm a huge Batman fan. Huge. I mean,
keep it close to the vest. I've never heard you keep it close to the vest.
Well, I don't, because this is such a, White Sox centric. We don't talk. I would always slip in some Seinfeld stuff and maybe a few other pop culture references, but
I think we start doing half Sox, half Batman or Seinfeld podcasts. I think that'd be more entertaining.
Something's got to happen, Pat, because I'm telling you, man, apathy has completely set in for me. Especially with weekends, beautiful, sunny, weekends, hot. It's summer. There's just way too many temptations. And, with the 2-year-old, like we're out and about doing things and we're just, it's not appointment TV. During the week, it's a bit of a different story, but weekend day games, man, I'm sorry. I'll catch up on that at another time. I am not going to sit there and watch or even listen to it live. I mean, I'm just everywhere but nowhere, as I know a lot of people are. And I sad to say, but I couldn't care less. Yeah. I couldn't care less right now about watching them because it's the same stuff. I mean, it's a gross product. What happened with Paul DeYoung on Friday, and then you got this nonsense with Aloy. we'll get into some nuts and bolts here in a moment, but Sox are 79 games into the season here. So you go back to 2023, last year, when they also lost 100 games, 101, under our fearless leader, Pedro Grifol. Boy, he's really coming up roses here with his record with the White Sox as a first-time joke manager. In 2023, after 79 games, the White Sox were 34-45. Not bad. Not bad. I bet you we were saying at this point, we're like a good week away from being in the conversation. We're a good 10-game stretch. You never know what can happen. So then go back to 2018, where they lost 100 games on the nose. After 79 games, 28-51. So better, 7 games better than what they are right now. Then you go back after 79 games, which arguably, of course, the worst record in all of team history, going back to 120 plus years. You got to go to 1970, where they lost 106 games that year. Well, that team after 79 games was 28-51. So this 2024 team is on pace to be the absolute worst. Now, I didn't factor in winning percentage because there were some really awful teams that only played 152 games. But at a 162 game schedule, yeah, we're watching it, man. This is historically bad.
And I think for you and I and everybody that listens to this show and anybody that doesn't listen to this show, I think it's important for us to continue to look at big picture. I don't think any of us are wringing our hands or gnashing our teeth on a day in and day out basis anymore. I guess we just would have to sit back and wonder, why do the baseball IQ things continue to happen at this point? Because those should be things that you don't have to have a lot of talent for, right? You don't have to have a lot of talent for knowing how many outs there are. You don't have to have a lot of talent to do just the little things right, running the bases correctly, things like that. I mean, that's the thing that's baffling, and that's the thing that I just can't understand how, this management group can't hold the manager accountable. And I know we talk about it every week, and it almost feels like it's sickening, but I have to keep bringing it up because it happens every week. The things that this manager said he was going to be, like, one of the pillars of this team was the baseball IQ thing. And it continues to be, just woeful and beyond, just like slip ups here and there. It's like, this has become part of who they are. And I think it's less about the players just being bad and more about them not giving a rat's ass. Like, listen,
there's guys that are on their way out. Like Tommy Pham talked about it openly, just I think today or yesterday in an article. Like, I know I'm going to be traded. I mean, I have to play better. I'm struggling, but I know. I mean, there's guys that absolutely know, and they're like, I think they're just trying to play for, what team? How can I get better my situation? So I can get a winning club. But yeah, I bet you, it's over. Like, they get it. And they're all just trying to jockey and figure out, well, where am I? How do I fit in, into this sinking ship? But we do talk about Grifol constantly, and there's reasons why we talk about him. And I think the big question is, who's going to be after Grifol? And there was some stuff written, recently about, minor league managers and the success that's happening in the farm system. And then there was a big thing by Bob Nightingale that, maybe a lot of people read with the Shoemaker situation. So let's get into it. So, who could be after Pedro Grifol? This was, I think, a write-up by maybe Merkin, or maybe it was Vance Govan of the Sun-Times, but so we all know about former Sox closer Sergio Santos and what's going on with, him managing the Birmingham Barons, managing him to first place in the Southern League. Among 3 up-and-coming managerial candidates in the Sox farm system, you got AAA manager Justin Jershell and low-A Kannapolis Patrick Leland, who is the son of Jim Leland. There you go. They are also well regarded by Sox decision makers. So there are 3 possible names. I've heard a ton about Sergio Santos, that he could very well be the next guy. This was from Bob Nightingale's recent article in USA Today covering baseball. While Chicago White Sox manager Pedro Griffol's future is uncertain past this season, one name that is floating around internally as a potential replacement in 2025 is Skip Shoemaker, manager of the Miami Marlins. Shoemaker, the reigning NL Manager of the Year, played 7 years in St. Louis for Tony La Russa, who will be an integral part of the decision-making process, Pat. He ain't going away anytime soon.
Oh my gosh. I made a joke today at this party and happy birthday to Barb Warden, 94 years old today, celebrating her wonderful birthday. It was a conversation amongst family. And I just said, if you need any help, Tony's right there. He's always available if you need it. And that was kind of a joke because I thought, well, he's not really there on a day in and day out basis, but they keep bringing him up for whatever reason. They want to continue to use his baseball mind, which, I get, you got to respect the guy for all the stuff that he's done, but why do you continue to go at Tony for input on this team anymore? Does he want to have input? Is he just being bothered? Is he just trying to, live out his life? But Jerry keeps saying, hey, something I want to ask about. It's like, I don't understand. I don't get it. The game has certainly passed him by. And I don't think that he's got the feel for it anymore. Why should he be helping make decisions? The only person that should be making these kind of decisions ultimately is Chris Gattis. If you hired Chris Gattis to generally manage this team, he should not have to be getting consulting from somebody that's not in the front office currently. He's a consultant for just because Jerry wants him to be.
Yeah.
It's again, undermining what you hired somebody to do. The same thing that you did when Rick Hahn was the GM and allowing Kenny Williams to pull strings behind his back and doing things that Rick wasn't aware of. You can't continue to run an organization this way. It's ludicrous.
A lot of people looked at this new regime with Chris Gattis, being the point person and no longer this two-headed monster of Williams and Hahn. And they said, well, if anything, at least Chris Gattis is the main guy. At least Chris Gattis is going to be making the decisions. He might not have a lot of experience, but we know Chris Gattis is the one. No, we don't. Not anymore. We absolutely don't know if Chris Gattis has the authority. I mean, it sounds like there's definitely being, people are pulling from all kinds of rope in all different directions. And I don't know. It seems like maybe Jerry and Tony were separated for such a long time, and Tony got brought back in the fold, and Jerry's like, wow, I really miss this. I missed like having you around or talking baseball or having you. Maybe it feels like it elevates the status, and he doesn't get it. Like he's kind of tone deaf and like, oh, well, we've got Tony La Russa in the decision-making process. So why wouldn't I? Like it's nice to reconnect. I'm not going to let him go now. If he wants to continue to make decisions and, stick around as a consultant, well, I can do whatever I want. I'm the owner. So I'm absolutely going to. I have no idea.
It's such a bizarre situation. It's a bizarrely run organization. Everything they do, just seemingly every decision that's made, it's just like I don't understand if there is a fan out there that goes, oh yeah, I see what they're doing here. This makes all the sense in the world.
There's a lot of Jerry apologists. I mean, and teach their own. I have interacted with them. They will defend Jerry. And there's a lot of Griffol defenders. There's definitely Gattis defenders.
What dark alleys are you having conversations with?
I converse with all kinds of Chicago White Sox fans, Pat, and that's I'm just trying to figure out, and I'm curious. I really am curious, but they're out there, man. They're absolutely out there. So look, I was reading something in the Chicago Sun-Times just Sunday here. Richard Roper wrote an op-ed, and it just kind of struck me, just this blurb. I did read this book that he's referencing, and I actually saw him in person when he was promoting the book years ago. So I have a signed copy if that means absolutely anything, which it kind of doesn't. But I can relate to his kind of White Sox fandom, just growing up and how aggravated he is. So just a little blurb here. I'm a diehard, lifelong White Sox fan. I attended my first game on July 29th, 1966. That was during that Adam West run of Batman, not to go way back. But I have the original scorecard from the game framed on my office wall. Yankees 2, White Sox 1, Mickey Mantle homered. I wrote a book about being a White Sox fan called Sox and the City. As a kid and a teenager playing ball, I wore number 11 in honor of Louis Aparicio, and later number 15, a tribute to Dick Allen. I'll forever be appreciative of that magical 2005 season, but that was nearly 2 decades ago. I don't think I've ever seen a White Sox team this bad. And yes, I remember the 56 and 106 team of 1970. And he goes on in the article to talk about things that you had mentioned earlier in the show, and we continue to harp on, and so many other Sox fans do: fundamentals. It's how they're losing. It's basic stuff, not hitting cutoff guys, not remembering how many outs there were, like on Friday with Paul DeYoung, lack of accountability all over. It's just, you need more of these articles, man. You need more of this stuff. You need more of just the absolute unrest that's out there, just hammering away. It's really pathetic.
It's amazing to me that it just doesn't resonate with anybody beyond the fan base. Like, it's almost like whatever we say or whatever we think, the sell the team chants, the signs that are out there, that Jerry's a clown, shirts that are worn by people. I can't imagine that doesn't affect a person. To say, I get it. The fans are going to be the fans, and the old saying, if you make a decision like a fan, you're going to sit with them. Boy, oh boy, I'd have to believe that there are a lot of people that could run this organization better. And it is embarrassing. I mean, I get asked all the time, what do you guys talk about? How are you guys continuing to talk about this team? This is ludicrous. Who's listening to this? And there are people out there every week that tune into this show and other shows like
Sox
it.
Fans, yeah.
And it's amazing to me that it just feels like we're shouting into the darkness every week about, boy, why can't we be like other teams? Why can't I have my own kid now? Again, my son Gavin, God bless him, loves this team. But you know what he's asking about every week? How did the Yankees do? Dad, how did the Yankees? Oh, did you see Judge? He had another home run the other day. Hey, how'd the Phillies do, Dad? That's what he's caring about right now.
Oh, of course.
And hey, De La Cruz, even though the Reds aren't very good right now, he's asking about other teams and other players, which maybe I was doing the same thing at that age, but
I was. I mean, I was checking in on players. Ken Griffey Jr. came around in 89, 90. You had the Bash brothers, in the late 80s. I mean, you had a ton of superstars. We kind of talked about this. It was until Frank Thomas came along where we just didn't have that absolute beast of a superstar. And guess who's coming to town these next 3 games? The LA Dodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, so there you go. Talk about, some superstars coming into town. And that's what people are going to want to flock to. Unfortunately, probably a lot of young Chicagoland sports fans, and I don't blame them.
Well, it'll be a fun sweep of the White Sox, so that'll be nice to.
Enjoy. Not to interrupt, but Trey mentioned something, and I think maybe even Luke brought something up about Jerry. Pat, do you honestly think, as we talk right here in late June, that Jerry will open up, the wallet, start writing checks and spend money this offseason?
Absolutely not. Why?
Okay.
Why would he do that?
I don't think so either. I think it's the same play like we had in 2017, 2018. We're going to hype up the prospects. We're going to try to trade for more prospects. We're going to be at the table in certain situations. We're going to get fringe guys, but we're not going to spend at the top of the free agency market. Does Jerry watch games? Luke had asked. Do we think? I don't think he watches them like people want us to think he watches them, and that he cares about them the way people want to say that he does, or that he even claims he does. Absolutely not. I think he probably gets briefed, but I don't see it. He just seems like he is pretty checked out.
I can't imagine he cares. I mean, again, the narrative that's out there, again, mostly probably by him and his people, to make sure that his employees are always saying how much he cares, and nobody wants to win more than Jerry. Over the 40 plus years that he's owned this team, he hasn't demonstrated that he really cares about winning, because he's never really like sold out, right? Sold out to like, all right, this is my opportunity. This is our chance. This is our chance to go on a 3 to 4 year. I'm not saying World Series.
What was that Albert Bell contract? Can you wrap your brain around that one?
$55 million.
Yeah. Like, what was that, and why was that at that time? And because that was pretty big at that time.
At that time, that was pretty big. I don't really remember why that didn't work out. I mean, he led the league in home runs, at least the American League. I think that season he came over to the team. You had him and Frank Thomas and Robert Ventura, but I would imagine it came down to pitching, which he doesn't pay for. No, so
yeah,
I can't remember all the details of that season, Nick, and I don't really know why it didn't work out. But listen, you bring a guy like an Albert Bell into the situation, and I think it was like, listen, we're going to make this work. This was the guy that was on the hated Cleveland at the time Indians team. And I don't know that he was all that of a warm and fuzzy type guy, and probably not a great clubhouse.
I just remember being shocked when that happened.
I just imagine that it was like, listen, this is the best guy in the market. And again, maybe it's like the John Dank situation, Nick. Maybe it was like, hey, I did that once. I went out and paid top dollar for the guy, and I got burned by it because he was and I don't remember. So somebody else could probably tell me. I'm guessing he wasn't a great guy for their culture, and it didn't really mesh well from a team aspect. So he looks at it and goes, I'm check that box, never doing that again, just like he did with Danks. Hey, I'm going to give John Danks a lot of money and multiple years, more than I normally would. And boom, what happens? John Danks is continually injured, and you never heard from again. So it's like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, don't mess with Texas with Jerry.
That is how the saying goes, and I want a T-shirt with that on there this week. I'm going to try to get that made from somebody. But you got the Adam Dunn thing, of course, Yasmani Grandal and Andrew Benintendi recently that have just kind of gone belly up. I think he'll spend on his terms. I wouldn't expect there to be a real honest approach at all towards the holes that need to be filled, like second base or right field, or of course getting an anchor for the pitching staff. But we'll touch on that, of course, as we always do in and out of the episodes. The Detroit series in Detroit, I didn't hear any much. I heard Benetti call the Paul DeYoung thing at the end of Friday. Is that a guy that you check in, Pat? If you had the opportunity, would you have tried to get Detroit's audio to hear Benetti?
No, that's not something I'm in for. I mean, listen, there's no good reason why he's still not calling games on the South Side, but for him, I'm sure it's a breath of fresh air because he's got control of how he wants to run the booth, and he's not being, analyzed probably every word he says or everything he does that, your boss doesn't like, and he can do what he wants to do, and he can pursue the things he wants to pursue. And I feel I'm happy for him, but I'm not going out of my way to listen to a Jason Benetti, although I would have loved to have I'll probably go back and listen to it now because I didn't think about it. That call. I mean, I can only imagine.
Yeah. He rubbed it in. He twisted the knife.
What can you sum it up for me?
I think if I'm wrong, and maybe someone could correct me in the chat, but it was kind of like and the Sox are doing White Sox things, so to speak. Like they lose another game in very White Sox fashion. I think that's what he kind of referenced, just on how horrible it's been going and just fundamentals. But if you live out of market and you've got the NFL package, which I did years ago when I was living in Washington, D.C. for a short period of time. This was the end of the Robin Ventura managerial era. And I had the MLB package so I could get all White Sox games. if the Sox were away, you got the away team feed. So I heard a lot of, announcers from around the league. And I'll tell you, there's some great teams, at least back then there were. I mean, solid, pairings. And, it sounded good. It was interesting to get that perspective of, what another tandem thinks of, the Chicago White Sox. So anyway, I didn't catch much of, Benetti's, he's gone. And I don't think too much about him. But so on Friday, which was the first game of that of Detroit series, Paul DeJong doubled off to end the game, forgot the out, apparently. Where was the first base coach? He was there. He wasn't like studying, spray charts in the bullpen, forgetting that there was a game, or in the dugout, I'm sorry, forgetting that there was a game going on. So this is what Paul DeJong had to say. Mental lapse there, worried about getting on base and didn't keep track of it. Totally on me and cost us the game. Feels pretty bad. Just try to do better next time. That's all I can say. When asked about the play, manager Pedro Grifol asked a reporter if DeJong had talked to reporters about it already. Grifol said, "I leave those answers to those guys. They're professionals. DeJong plays the game hard every day. If he said he had a mental lapse, that's part of it. We're all human." So, yeah.
At some point, you have to be a leader. I'm sorry. You have to be a leader. And if you got to call guys out through the media, you call guys out through the media. I mean, you just have to say, listen, we as a group can't allow that to happen anymore. I can't allow my first base coach to allow our base runners to not be aware of how many outs there are. That's on all of us. And he's got to be better. The first base coach has to be better. I have to be better. That's literally Bush League, Little League stuff. It's ridiculous. And it's embarrassing to watch on a night in and night out basis. And I'm going to do everything. I'm going to be obsessed about doing it, so we don't let that happen again, because it's happened too many times on my watch.
Pat, amen. I mean, that's all I got to say is if you call out guys for playing flat or looking flat against a pretty damn good Baltimore team and a great pitcher, I say great, but a really good pitcher that had his stuff going, and you call them flat, which was way too late in the year to start talking about flat. And if you're still invested and that you are not sacrificing games for development and you're competitive every single day, you play to win, then that's the type of comment you have after that. You don't care if Paul DeJong has talked to the media or not. You say it's inexcusable. We cannot have it. We have to live on the margins, and I cannot have this happening from guys like Paul DeJong, who's not a newcomer at all. He's one of the leaders right now of this team, especially playing like it. And he's a guy that very well could be off this team. Maybe that's his issue, is he's like, you know what? I'm a lame duck here, and I don't really care. Well, that should have absolutely been throttled by Pedro Grifol in the post game.
I mean, listen, it's an opportunity to again, let everybody know, one, who's boss. Two, you take accountability for yourself. I think that kind of would make at least the fan base like you a little bit more. If you would say things like this and listen, this is on everybody. It starts with me. This is embarrassing, and I'm embarrassed to see it on a night out basis. It's just, it cannot continue to happen. And I don't know what I have to do to fix it, but I'm going to do it however I think I need to be able to do it to fix it. I just think it's, for me, guys doing that on the base paths is like a middle finger right up at your dugout, saying, yeah, I don't really care about trying or paying attention for you anymore. I'm out here. I lost track. Guys that care about each other and care about winning for their manager, they don't let that happen, Nick. I mean, I just, it's just amazing over the past year and a half how many times we've seen these ridiculous plays.
And it's allowed, and it's continued to be allowed, and it's, everybody's off the hook, and who knows what's being said behind, closed doors. But I wanted him to just absolutely unleash. I mean, if you were going to do what you did about playing flat, like, do it for that situation. If you claim that you are out here and guys are busting their butt trying to win, we just don't see it as fans, but he's proud of the players and they're giving it their all. And something like that, you absolutely have to unleash. I mean, It's inexcusable. It's embarrassing. It's pathetic, on and on and on. But, hey, Fetty was on the hill on Friday, 92 pitches, retired the last 14 batters he faced after allowing 5 hits and 1 walk. I mean, he's a guy that's really pitching himself out of Chicago. There's no question about it. So Saturday, you follow up with that disaster, and Thorp's on the hill, and Thorp's been kind of hot and cold. Again, this guy, Drew Thorp, who came, of course, over from the Dylan Cease deal from San Diego, who's rocking the mustache, which I appreciate. He's not going to blow you away with the fastball, man. He sits like 89 to 91. And that means that fastball has to be cleverly spotted, and you have to keep guys off balance. And he's got a really good changeup with movement, sitting high 70s. So you're looking at maybe 12 to 13 miles per hour different. I'd like it maybe a little bit more, but that's not bad right now in terms of range between changeup and fastball. The cutter, changeup dancing out of the zone, which was nice to see. He got his first major league win, 6 innings, 2 hits, 0 runs, 4 walks. He's got to work on that. That bit him in his previous outing too. That lack of command, 5 strikeouts. So again, he's not a strikeout pitcher. He's more of a to contact guy. But he's, because he's not throwing so hard, this is something that, Canon is going to have to deal with. Though Canon can hit 94, maybe 95, if not more. When you're throwing the junk and keeping guys off balance because you're not overpowering guys with your heater, well, you have a tendency for that stuff to fly out of the zone. And if you've got a team that's disciplined, that's done their homework, that knows what you're throwing, well, they're going to draw the walk. They're going to sit back and let you make your mistake. So again, he's young. He's going to hopefully figure it out. But that was good to see for Thorp. 4th inning, I highlighted this as I was actually watching a little bit this on Saturday Live. So Luis Robert Jr. led off with a double and then stole third. And what Robert Jr. did, stealing third, the pitcher completely fell asleep, something that White Sox pitchers have been doing all season. It was great to see the Sox do something that's been done to them. It's like, hey, you see what's happening? Pay attention. If this guy is not giving you a second look or is not really changing up his motion or timing or anything, walk into third. Yeah. And because of that, after Sheets struck out and Vaughn bounced to the pitcher, DeYoung, the guy who's forgetting outs, he actually, saved the inning with a seeing eye single. So that Robert maybe scores from second, because he's a speedster on that, but obviously was able to coast home. So it's that stuff, what I'm talking about here is marginal stuff. When you take the extra 90 feet, that was actually positive. It was like, okay, that's great. But you kind of negated it with what you did on Friday with forgetting outs. Yeah. It's like you can't be back, forth. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got to play this type of baseball, this heads up baseball, all the time when you're a team like the White Sox.
I honestly think, and maybe I'm wrong about this, I think that at every level, whether you're, Pinto League all the way up to the majors, it's never a bad thing to continue to talk and emphasize base running. And I know people may not agree with that. Maybe people think, listen, at some point guys got to get it. And, or where the season started, that's something we talk about, in earlier in the year in practices or this and that. Listen, good teams continue to put pressure on other teams. Good teams know how to take a base. And I tell, our kids on our 8U team, listen, you don't have to be fast to be a good base runner. Some of the best base runners I ever saw were catchers. It's about being smart and disciplined and knowing how to take that extra base, because the closer you get, obviously to scoring, the better. And you're putting yourself in good situations. Now, this team traditionally in the past, let's say 3, 4, 5 years has been absolutely awful on scoring runs, with less than 2 outs from third. But, you got to continue to give yourselves opportunities. So when your head's in there and you're watching and somebody's going to allow you just to steal, go ahead and take it. Take that extra base, put the pressure on, continue to put pressure on other teams. And I think good things will happen. And it just baffles me that this team, outside of a couple guys, is so horrific at those little things. It just drives me insane.
When you had watched in previous years, and you still do now, especially when Sheets is out there and even Ben Attendi and left, but teams understand opposition know the outfield.
Yeah.
They know that when they hit it and that outfielder, that corner outfielder doesn't have a strong arm, especially Sheets, he's just not built for the outfield, but he keeps getting put out there for all kinds of different reasons.
We're very bullish on him.
We're bullish on him. So we're just going to keep shoving him out there. Well, when we know that Sheets has got to run to a ball a little bit, it's like you got the speed, you put the pressure on his arm.
Yeah.
Dare him. Throw me out. So it's those 90 feet. And then anything can happen, a pass ball or, something. And, when you're when you have guys on the base paths, absolutely. Everybody feels it. I mean, and then when you've got somebody at first base, even though you don't have a lot of speed, how you can set up with your leadoff and your timing things. And it's a game changer when a team is lacking talent like the Sox do and all different kinds of levels. Like doing those things right is what we were thinking we were getting ourselves into in 2024.
That's what we were hoping for.
That's what we were hoping for.
We almost talked ourselves into a team that, we put a $10 bet on them winning this division, which was hilarious at this point. But, I thought they could be middle of the pack. I thought they were an average team. You look at some of the individual parts of this team when it started and you go, I could talk ourselves into maybe being 15 games under and finish in, third or fourth place, which seems like a pipe dream. That would be like a miracle at this point. But
yeah, no, we're going for history, man.
I don't know. And I want to say, I want to think again that it's about this team is just kind of completely checked out at this point. There's no real reason to even care. There's no reason to play hard for the guy next to you because you're probably going to be gone. You're playing for yourself. When you're playing for yourself and playing for your next trade or your next contract, that's not going to result in winning. And especially when you're trying to bring along young players, it's a terrible environment.
Yeah, it's going to look a lot different in August and September.
And I have to, I got to shout out, my teammate, Sylvie. Sylvie brought it up a couple weeks ago. It's like, listen, there's no reason to keep a Pedro Grifol in if you continue to bring guys up because he's toxic.
Thank you.
He's toxic. If you want to develop these guys for the future, you look at what he's done with the current roster of players there are some veterans and they've gotten worse under his regime, right? Under his watch, players have regressed.
Well, we'll talk Koss in a second, but keep going.
And so why would you want to think, okay, this is a development year in the back half of this year, we're going to be bringing guys up, right? And especially the pitchers, we're going to keep this guy intact here. Why would you want this guy stink on anybody else that comes up? It just makes zero sense to me. What are you laughing at? Because I'm not reading as you're laughing. Are you just laughing at me in general? Or you're laughing?
No, there's some wonderful comments about just some inside jokes with some folks did predict 74. I know some people that thought 74 wins, but that was.
Does that mean did I predict?
No,
74?
you were not. You were not at all.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that's why I just cringe at the notion, Pat, of, well, why would you want to change a manager? Nothing's going to change anyway. Greatest manager in the world's not going to do anything with this pile of crap. That's not true. Okay. Because once you realize that somebody is just horrible for the organization, they just can't get messages across. They can't fulfill, their philosophies, nobody's listening to them. There is zero accountability. They've lost it. It's off the rails and it's been that way for a long time. And you see no future with that person. End it. End it. Be a gutsy organization and end it. You got teams like Houston that are realizing, okay, Jose Abreu is not working out. We owe him a ton of money, but it's not helping our ball club anymore. We're ending it. Okay, we're cutting bait. What's Grifol making? $1.5 million left? 2 million? God only knows. Eat it. Get him out of here. Shove Montoya in, and start working on the plan. It's get LaRussa's plan in place for who the next manager is going to be.
It's written on a tablet. They're on phone tablets. I mean, if I was Chris Gattis, I'd say 2025 starts right now. It starts right now with the development of the guys that we have, regardless of how the rest of the season goes. We need to see, regardless of where the season is eventually going to go in terms of a record, we need to see some improvement in these 2-3 areas with these guys that are coming up. We're not going to concern ourselves with a win on a day in and day out basis, but we need to see guys, one, knowing how to play fundamental sound baseball, so we can continue to teach that to the guys that come up here and develop some type of culture of who we are and who we want to be. Maybe who we want to be, is not feasible for this year, but who we want to be is this, right? But it has to start with these steps. And this is how we're going to get there. And step one is remove the bozo that we have managing this team. Whatever he's owed, he's owed. I mean, you cannot continue to say we can allow this to go any further with this guy.
Because if you're a serious organization and you actually care about,
and if you're serious about this being a fast turnaround, which was what we were told by the owner.
Sure.
Listen, we want this to go fast. This is why we have Chris Getz, because he knows the organization. It's not going to take him long to get ingratiated to the job. We can go right now and hit the ground running with Chris Getz. Fantastic. Then let him get the ground running and let him do the right thing and get rid of the manager.
Yeah.
And anybody else that's connected to Pedro Grifol that he brought in, seemingly the first base coach. I don't even know his name, but he's barely out there and he's not helping guys on the base pads.
Bourgeois, I believe, Jason Bourgeois is your first base coach. If you've ever disliked something so much is how Pedro Grifol feels about Oscar Koss, man, I hope it's not a person in your life, because that's some serious dislike. I mean, the amount of dislike that Pedro Grifol has for Koss is unbelievable. So the last game that Koss played in a Chicago White Sox uniform, he had 3 hits in Seattle. There was 0 playing time after that, and that was a while ago. Koss was 9 for 25 with 2 walks in his last 9 games that he played. His approach, more discipline, it was reported, but no extra base hits. This was Grifol. Speaking of Koss just not getting any playing time, this was prior to Saturday, of course. He works extremely hard. Now, he's doing everything he can to stay sharp. He can't do this long term. If an opportunity doesn't present itself in the near future, then obviously it's more beneficial for him to go get at bats. I love that quote because he's the one that can give the opportunities. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of like, well, I don't know how he's going to get these opportunities. We're all trying to figure out who should give him the opportunities. We're crunching our heads together post game every single night. Who should do this? You should, you moron. Give him some opportunities. Well, that is gone. That is long gone. On Saturday, Oscar Koss was optioned again by the Chicago White Sox. So, I don't know what to say. When you don't like something and you don't like someone, it's just clear. It's absolutely crystal clear.
I just can't understand why. Again, I don't know how highly touted he was or where he, was ranking in the system for the Chicago White Sox or MLB at one point. But I remember us being pretty excited to see this kid. Now, again, it was seeing him when he came up with a team that was, quote unquote, kind of set to win this division, right? And it was like Oscar Koss is going to win right field. And you and I were talking about he doesn't have to be the star of the team. He can just fit in. He can just provide some left-handed power. If he can figure out how to play right field, maybe this is the answer we've been waiting for. But you continued now at this point with the lineup that you have. You're telling me this kid can't crack the lineup? You're telling me this kid can't, get at bats with this team on the field? I mean, that seems a little crazy to me. And I'm not saying that Oscar Koss is the best thing since sliced bread. I don't know, but I'd like to see him get an opportunity with the big club and have it be somewhat sustainable for a while until he proves to you that he can't do it. Yeah,
it's pretty maddening what has gone on with this guy during his time, really up with the big league club. I mean, he was talked about so much by Rick Hahn in that off season heading into Well, it was the 2023 season, I believe. And this is our guy, and he didn't hurt himself in spring training. I mean, he had an okay spring training. And of course they never went out and got a legitimate right fielder. And it was like, this is the guy. And I think he just was clearly, overmatched, needed some polishing, needed some help, needed some discipline, as has been talked about. Now, I could be crazy, and this may be just me wanting to believe in it, but in this run that he had when he came up, and the last time we saw him before he was optioned, it looked like kind of a different Oscar Koss. I mean, It looked like he just kind of just had a better approach at the plate. That's for sure. It reminded me of Lenyn Sosa. Like, Lenyn Sosa seems like a different guy when he's getting consistent playing time. It's interesting how that works. The more playing time you get under your belt, the more mistakes you make, you learn from that. So we think about, like, okay, what kind of who was helping this guy Oscar Koss develop? This seems like to be ongoing issues. Did anybody say, hey, these are the things you need to work on? Or is this, he worked on those things and it didn't matter what he did, he was just never going to break through? I mean, this is just complete Pedro Grifol under the thumb. Sorry, man. It's just, I don't like
this
you. Guy.
I don't like you.
Is not my kind of guy. So
it's bizarre, to say the least. In the most bizarre last 2 years, we'll call it 3 years, of watching this team, it's one of the most bizarre things that continues to happen.
I got a real bizarre thing that I would like to talk about in just a moment.
How bizarre? Remember that song?
I absolutely do. It might have been on WCSF 88.7 The Edge.
If anybody out there, by the way, the 166 of you that are currently listening, if you've ever listened to Nick or I DJ on 88.7 WCSF, enjoy it. You have to be like living in the building.
It was a 100-watt college radio station.
Please chime in. And Nick may have a prize for you if you have anything lying around. You might win
I've got a couple old WCSF T-shirts. If
you get out of here.
I do. I absolutely have some T-shirts still.
All right. So trivia question for anybody out there listening: if you can tell us what our morning show was called when Nick and I were spinning the dials back in the day, you can win yourself 88.7 The Edge T-shirt.
So Pat and I met in college, and we were doing radio in college, and we had a morning show together. We had a couple shows together, but the call letters for the college radio station at the University of St. Francis in Joliet was WCSF, and the frequency was 88.7, and the name of it was The Edge. We changed it from Hit Radio to The Edge when we took over, and that's how you and I met, just doing radio shows and spinning CDs and all that kind of stuff in the early 2000s.
Now look at us. Look how successful we are.
Unbelievably successful. Unbelievably. So successful that, we have got the opportunity to talk about Eloy Jimenez getting hurt again, which I really have no interest for, but it's White Sox news, so we'll touch on it. This was a game you absolutely wanted to forget on Sunday, Pat. Sox lost 11-2 in the finale against Detroit. Canon, who was so brilliant against the Houston Astros earlier in the week, 8 2/3, almost should have finished the game, gave up just a couple hits, in that ninth inning. He had it all working. What he had working so well against the Astros, Detroit did their homework, and Canon didn't do any favors, but his stuff just hung in the zone, and he lived by it against Houston, and he died by it against the Detroit Tigers. They ate his lunch and then came back for more. He just got absolutely pounded. He lasted an inning, gave up 7 hits, 8 runs, 5 of them earned, 0 walks, which, hey, there's your silver lining. 1 strikeout and a couple home runs.
That one
his sweeper, which, I love the sweeper. He's got like 8 or 9 different pitches, but that sweeper, if it is not sweeping and if it is not breaking horizontally, it's just spinning like a cement mixer, hanging in there in that zone. And it got mashed. His changeup got mashed. His fastball caught way too much of the zone. And that maybe was just Detroit doing some homework of, hey, just be patient. This is what you're going to get from him. And it was also Canon just completely you can't be in the zone with that stuff. And when it's not moving, forget about it. The icing on the cake for all this is Eloy Jimenez comes back from the IL. I hate to laugh. I'm not laughing at somebody that's hurt, but it's the situation. This is stranger than fiction. You cannot make this stuff up. I said it on social media earlier today. If you wrote this script on Eloy Jimenez and said, this is all the things, all the injuries that are going to happen to this character throughout his brief time in the Chicago, the production company would say, this is not believable. No one will believe that a can't miss guy is going to go through all of this stuff and be this fragile. Sorry, rewrite it. No one's going to believe it. Yeah, but it's supposed to be, no, this one would never happen to somebody in real life. What is going on is just absolutely insane. I'm not surprised. Are you surprised that he got hurt? His hamstring got hurt today? Like running base?
Was that what it was? A hamstring?
Yeah,
I was not tuning in today. No, it doesn't surprise me. And if I didn't know he got hurt today, I was going to say, how many games until he does get hurt? Because he's not finishing the season without getting another stint on the IL. And I don't understand how it can continue to be hamstring, or these muscle pulls and tears and
soft tissue issues.
It's almost unbelievable. I mean, what kind of legs does this guy have?
I mean, we have made jokes. I don't know if they're jokes or just, we've compared Eloy Jimenez to Derrick Rose, and it seems like a joke. That's an insult to Derrick Rose. That's an absolute insult to him. Derrick Rose was successful. Yeah. I mean, he was an award-winning basketball player that had crazy skills and, could carry a team, when he was right. I mean, Eloy Jimenez, a Silver Slugger Award, maybe 2. I mean, hi, Mom. Okay. What else you got for me? Am I missing other things, other key moments in what Eloy Jimenez has done?
He's hit some big home runs against the Cubs, which was awesome. Which made us all drunk on we won that trade, right?
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the prize of that trade now pitches in San Diego, and the other piece of that trade is continually in the hospital. So it doesn't really work out too well.
Sean says he's got a great smile. I'll give you that. He's happy. He seems to be happy. He seems to be enjoying himself. I mean, I just, it's not surprising. I'm done with him. I'm so done with him. Please leave. Just go. I wish you find happiness somewhere else. And I hope your body gets better, but he's worthless for the White Sox right now.
Here's the sad part is, I've never met Eloy Jimenez. I don't know if he's a nice person or a big ass. I have no idea. It's sad as a fan base that we are mad at him for being hurt all the time. I don't think anybody can quantify it and go, he's getting hurt because he doesn't do anything to keep himself healthy, or if his body is just freakish. And it's just something you can't predict. You know what I mean?
I'm mad at him. I'm mad at the situation and at I guess the inability for the Sox to capitalize on that. And someone mentioned it in the chat, and it was on the White Sox homepage. If you went to go looking for updates about the game, this photo and a little blurb that said there was a photo of Eloy, and the blurb was. They're one player away from reuniting the big 3.
Oh, I saw somebody put that in the chat. That was actually on.
That was actually on WhiteSox.com. So yeah, we just can't wait till Moncada gets back. Big 3. Who's ever called him the big 3? I mean,
oh my break. Oh my. Good. I'm aghast at that. That's almost something like Pedro would say is the quote of the week.
I mean, just that notion of oh yeah, just wait till Moncada gets back and we've got the big 3 back in play.
Ooh, look out, everybody.
Yeah. Unfortunate situation all the way around. We'll see what happens if he sits for a couple more, if he's back on the IL, if he, who knows, man, maybe some, icy hot and a foam roller. I don't know. He gets back on the playing field against the Dodgers on Monday. We're over an hour, Pat. Can you do some OT? Because I want to get a little bit to what Gattis had to say. I hope people don't mind being with us a little bit longer than usual here on this Sunday, but I'm kind of all hot and bothered with this team, and I don't even know why, but I am. So the great one, Chris Gattis, spoke before the Houston series last week, and it's kind of old news, but you and I haven't been able to talk about it. And boy, the things that he said, if you take it just on the surface, it's really not that bad. But when you compare it to how it started back in August or September and kind of combined it with the Jerry Reinsdorf stuff, it's really, it makes you sick. So this is what it's just one of the things that he said. The team as a whole, although the record is not very good, I think the intent and the energy of playing for the White Sox and for each other, I sense a lot of positives in that. And here is on Gattis on the White Sox potential contending timetable. This is absolutely laughable. Now, remember, just to give you some perspective here, this is what Reinsdorf said in August of 2023. Okay, this is Reinsdorf talking about what the Sox have looking ahead here. This is August 2023. The conclusion I came to was what we owe our fans and ourselves is not to waste any time. We want to get better as fast as we possibly can. And if I had gone outside, it would have taken anybody at least a year to evaluate the organization. Okay, fast forward now to what Gattis said last week. I don't think it would be appropriate or accurate enough to put a date out there in which we feel like we're ready to compete for the division, just the division, let alone the American League or anything beyond that. It's again, that's something that Gattis probably should have said back in August or September. On the, you take that and you read that and you understand this team and you know this team. It's like, okay, that makes sense. Should have said it a long time ago, friend, because now throwing this at us after you were talking quick turnaround, be competitive, all that nonsense, it doesn't sit well.
That means that the cupboard is not only bare, but there's no cupboard, and it could take him longer than the last quote unquote rebuild took. So,
oh my.
So, then it goes back to the, in the short term, what are you planning on doing? I had the conversation with my dad this past week. Are they going to trade Robert? Are they going to trade Crochet? What are they going to do? And I told him, I said, I've said it before. I'll say it again. It really depends on where Gattis thinks he is in this rebuild and how fast he can get it together. If he's sitting there telling us at this point, it wouldn't be right for him to put a timetable on it. That means it's a long time, and those two guys are as good as gone, in my opinion, along with others. But those guys are as good as gone because there's no reason to keep guys that you can trade when their value is at their highest, when they're not going to be around or be at their peak when you plan on competing.
Yeah, it's it almost like if you could peel that away, it's like in his brain, he's like, I have no idea what to say because I have no idea what's going on. It's like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how bad this was. And that's understandable. You're a first year GM. You've been given this kind of just, hand grenade in your lap, that has a lot of different issues.
I'd rather have a hand grenade in my lap, I think.
Would you rather this or that? We're going to be playing a little bit of this or that. Would you rather be the GM of the Chicago White Sox currently or have a hand grenade in your lap? Because Pat is chosen the hand grenade.
Yes, please blow everything off from the waist down. I'd rather have that happen.
Good Lord. That's a statement right there. That really sums everything up. That could be that could be the name of this episode.
I'm telling you, I've got
hand
great
grenade in your lap.
We've never picked one yet, but
I like it. Hand
days.
grenade in your lap. That grabs your attention in a lot of different ways. So, that's again, like it's years, man. I'm thinking years, but you know how to fix it quick. And I'm not saying it's a complete guarantee, but spend some money. Spend money purposefully. Spend money with focus on pitching. Spend money at the top of the free agency on areas that you need to address with proven talent. Go ahead. You can do this. You can do it. Come on. Stop talking about a new stadium. Stop showing me renderings. Stop telling me about all this stuff. Build a team. You know how to do it. Do it for the first time ever. Try it.
It's really the only way to do it. But I mean, there are some there is some hope within the young pitchers that you have.
Absolutely
right?
is. There absolutely is.
And not all of them are obviously going to pan out, and who knows what the future could hold. But if you have some good starting pitching, then you can kind of fill in the blanks with some things, or you could try to. So there's a path that Jerry won't go down, but there's a path to be at least more competitive in the division and not be the worst team of all time. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the way that it will continue to go. But you could theoretically rebuild on the fly and build your farm system at the same time. And if you continue to maybe like bring these guys in, flip a guy here or there, there's some opportunities in which it may not be years, but I think the purse strings are going to continue to shrink for Chris Getz, and he's going to have to do it the long, excuse the saying here, the long and hard way. And that's that you could use that as a title of the show too.
If it is after 10 p.m. Central.
So. It is now. Yeah, we can get it. It's after hours. It's after dark on a Sunday night.
Hello.
Yeah, you could do it that way, but I think that he's going to be given limited resources, and he's going to be told, go consult with Tony on what you think what you should.
You know what Tony's going to say? All your budget should be on bullpen arms. So go all in on bullpen, which they desperately need. They need bullpen, and he's going to just say, "Hey, bullpen, go to work, figure it out." I mean, they need bats. Man, do they need offense and bats and position players and bullpen? I want to see, an anchor in the starting rotation. Go get just go get a stud arm. Hey, it's great to have a lot of exciting pitching, but you can't lean on all of that. Okay, we've been down that road. Go spend on some veteran pitching, some stud pitching. There's absolutely a ton. We got a couple things I wanted to hit before our Pedro Grifol quote of the week. And again, next up for the Sox, Dodgers come to town. Then there's one game against the Atlanta Braves, which is a makeup from a postponed April game. So you got 3 at home against the Dodgers, and you play the Braves, and then you go to Colorado. Crochet on the Hill coming up here. I think it's Monday. I think Crochet's on the Hill on Monday. Is that right? Or is it Tuesday? But that's the thing I'm going to be looking at. How does Crochet, because we saw Crochet in spring training against the Dodgers, and he looked really confident. Spring training, of course, small sample size. But the Dodgers on the tear. Ohtani's on a tear. He's a beast. And what's Crochet got in store against the Dodgers with the home crowd and everything? I think it'll be fairly well attended, basically because of the Dodgers.
What's the giveaway this week?
Ohtani bobbleheads. There's they're giving a Shohei,
and it's a bobblehead of him at a separate table, and the Sox being several tables away.
Yeah,
because we didn't even have a seat at the table, nor did we want one.
Yeah,
with Shohei Ohtani. It's a really long bobblehead mock-up
Yeah.
situation, but it just shows Jerry all the way over here, several tables away, and Ohtani signing with the Dodgers at another table and laughing.
There is a Mexican heritage jersey. Thank you, Peyton, for that. And it looks really sharp. I saw the images of that. That's a really nice jersey. Mexican
what day is that on?
jersey.
What day is the heritage jersey on?
I don't know exactly. It's this week coming up though.
I'm going on Saturday. I'm going on the 29th.
Okay, well, you need to hit up the Whiskey at Comiskey tailgate.
I'm going there. I'm going to be entertaining some partners, maybe I
bring the
will.
partners.
Well, big partners, or partners from Tito's Handmade Vodka.
Hello.
If you're into vodka, you should probably drink Tito's. Just saying, you should do that.
Pat, you need to go to the Whiskey at Comiskey tailgate with the Chicago sports bums. It's going to be well attended by a lot of people. Just go there, make an appearance, look for the flag, and you're going to be taking care of your partners. The people you're entertaining are going to have the time of their lives. You're going to eat well. It's going to be great.
Drew says he's going to give me a beef and a beer, or maybe it was a typo. But now I'm going to hold him to giving me
You're going to get all the food and drink you want. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And you like a king.
I'm telling you, you gotta make this tailgate. Luke had asked. Luke said he's going to the game on the 29th, and he wanted to know if he should go to Phil's or Vito and Nick's for pizza. Now, Phil's, I would say absolutely go to Phil's. Now, Phil's doesn't open though, I think, until 3 p.m. unless they change their hours. But so that might have to be an after game, because isn't the game on Saturday 3 o'clock?
It's a 1:10. It's a 1:10.
Oh, it's a 1:10 on Saturday. So forget about it.
Very rare Saturday 1:10 start.
Okay, so go to Phil's after the game. You can even order it while you're maybe in the stadium or something, so it's nice and ready for you when you leave. When the Sox are getting blown out and you duck out like it's in the 6th inning or something. So maybe go to Vito and Nick's beforehand, depending on their hours. But Phil's is the absolute best, in my opinion. Absolute best pizza in Chicago. And I've had a ton of pizza in Chicago. Phil's is the absolute best.
You are a pizza connoisseur. I trust your judgment. You have one of the best mustaches in all of the land, and you know Batman stuff.
Well, speaking of Batman,
you are a catch.
Drew Bogues, thank you. Before we get to the quote, Drew Bogues reminded us in the chat that this is today, Drew, the anniversary of the 1989 theater release of the Michael Keaton, of course, Batman.
Wow. That takes me back. I saw that. I went and saw that in the theaters for my birthday.
There you go.
Friends. It was a great day.
Yeah. I didn't see that one in the theater. I saw Batman Returns, the 1992 Danny DeVito, which Danny DeVito should have won an Oscar for his performance as the Penguin.
Stop.
No question about it.
You know what? We've been having the same discussion about this movie for about 22 years now.
We have. Yep. And it's a fabulous.
I will never convince you that wasn't a very good film, but hey.
It did its purpose. It served its purpose.
If they would have just had Catwoman, it would have been a fine movie. Why did they have to have
Danny DeVito was born to play Penguin?
But they didn't have to give him the fat suit. What do they give him a fat suit for? And flippers?
Because that's the way the Frank Miller, the comic, the Dark Knight series went. It wasn't the Burgess Meredith Batman from the Adam West series.
Look at you go. You were just on a roll. How do you know these people's names?
I listen and learn, my friend. I listen and learn.
You're very well read.
Yes.
You're something.
Yeah. Okay. So folks, really appreciate, before we get to the quote and say our goodbyes, this was awesome. I mean, this team is absolutely, words can't accurately explain how difficult they are to watch, but it's the love of ours. It's the fandom. We're connected for so many different reasons. And I'm so glad we all can get together, chat, just therapy. This is what it is. Sox therapy on Sunday nights. Hopefully this was helpful in some way, shape, or form. Pass this podcast along to other Sox fans in your life. Would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel. That means a ton as we try to get those subscriptions up. But audio available absolutely everywhere. On Twitter X at Good Guys TB and Facebook fan page, but it absolutely means a ton. Here is your Pedro Grifol quote of the week. Pedro apparently has been in communication with the front office about trades, but also more than that. We talk about our players all the time. We are constantly evaluating, Grifol said. This is a game of evaluations. We talk about our players. We talk about the present. We talk about some of the future. It's just good baseball conversation. where we are right now, where we want to be. It's just good dialogue all the way around. If you take that and you don't understand what's going on with the White Sox, you're like, man, this team's 58-21. This team is probably a first place team. They're probably a juggernaut in all of baseball. There sounds like they're having some wonderful conversations.
Really good. Solid
Stuff is being said. Always evaluating, constantly evaluating. So, Grifol keeping it light.
I was gone and disconnect. Is Maldonado currently still on the team?
Maldonado is still very much on the team.
Okay. Has he been is he next on the list of people to be evaluated? Maybe that conversation hasn't happened yet.
There's one person that was evaluated, and they only had time for one, and it seems like they always have time for the same one, is Oscar Koss. He's the only one that gets strictly evaluated, and then they kind of
maybe they're doing it in like alphabetical order, Maldonado being somewhere near the middle of the alphabet. They just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. It's quite the scene, man. It really is. As the Sox open up against the Dodgers, that should be fun. I'm actually curious to see how they respond, as they are 21-58 as we record here, 37 games under 500. Pat, hey, next Sunday is your birthday.
And next Sunday is your anniversary.
It is my wedding anniversary next Sunday. It's your birthday. Are we still going to do a show?
I wouldn't see why not.
All right. Sounds good. A lot to celebrate in our personal lives, and I'm sure this team will give us so much more to talk about and celebrate next Sunday.
Yeah, let's do it again, buddy.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you again so much for jumping in. Find the audio absolutely everywhere. Hey, for Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.